Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. If you like all things true crime, if you like it delivered in a peaceful, tranquil manner, if you like it clear and concise without drama, then I highly recommend you subscribe. And if you like what you hear, please smash the like button. It's a free way you can help. And now, without further ado, let's dig in. This case is even more confounding than the Summer Wells case, in my opinion. We've got a missing 15-year-old autistic child, Sebastian Rogers, who's been gone for 3 months, his mother, Katie Proudfoot, and his stepdad, Chris Proudfoot, and his biological father, Seth Rogers, all supposedly received scores on their polygraphs indicating no deception, although law enforcement hasn't officially declared that. Chris Proudfoot keeps saying that all 3 of the parents have been cleared. But again, law enforcement is not saying that. And neither is Seth Rogers, by the way. Tonight on an interview on Bullhorn Betty's channel, he said he is a suspect and none of the parents have been cleared. We have no security camera footage, so far anyway, from Sebastian's neighborhood showing him leaving the house on the night of Sunday, February 25th, or into the morning of Monday, February 26th. At least that's what's being said by the Proudfoots, and law enforcement has said that thus far there are no signs of foul play. There supposedly is also no footage capturing a vehicle leaving the Proudfoot home prior to the call the Proudfoots made to the sheriff's office. Of course, we've been told that it was very dark outside that night when Sebastian supposedly exited his house, and thus he might not have been captured on security videos, depending on the route he took, if he truly walked out of his own home via the front door. By the way, that theory comes from the parents, meaning Katie and Chris Proudfoot. That's what they're saying. Doesn't sound like that's what law enforcement is necessarily agreeing with. Is it equally possible that a vehicle leaving the house without headlights might be able to escape capture on those security cameras? It was dark. How far did the cameras reach? Would they have picked that up on a very dark night? 3 canines supposedly tracked Sebastian's scent to a retention pond in a neighboring construction area. One of those dogs even jumped in the pond. The Proudfoots have had 2 CPS reports, Child Protective Services reports, filed on them in the not-so-distant past. One supposedly in connection to Sebastian, one in connection to Chris's 6-year-old daughter, Faith. Chris is also in a custody dispute with Faith's mother. Stepdad Chris has also been accused of DV by his 4th wife. His 5th wife, Katie, comes from a home with a mother and other relatives who've served time for child SA. Such a childhood leaves permanent scars in most cases. Sebastian's biological father has also been accused of bad behavior against Sebastian and against his ex-wife, Sebastian's mother, Katie. Of late, Seth has also been accused of trying to get a true crime YouTuber to purchase a firearm for him that cost $2,000. Seth is a correctional officer, and what he asked the YouTuber to do is a crime. Another YouTuber, JLR, has said that Seth showed him multiple firearms in his truck when they met. It's a tad disconcerting to hear that Seth would be spending $2,000 on a firearm when a lot of people have contributed a lot of money to a GoFundMe to help him with the search efforts, printing flyers. Seth's PR person, Tony Mathis, failed to vet information that he shared with the public, information that later turned out to be untrue. He's fundraising to bring people with questionable pasts to Tennessee to search for Sebastian. Sebastian's mother and stepfather left the home Sebastian was staying at when he vanished to live in an RV miles and miles away. What will Sebastian do if he miraculously returns to that empty house? What the F is going on here? At this point, I honestly have zero faith in any of these people. And back to that retention pond. If we choose to believe the dogs accurately hit on Sebastian's scent, and these weren't false hits, it would imply that Sebastian somehow made that journey to that pond, either by walking, running, being forced that way, being dragged that way. So do we conclude for sure that Sebastian left on foot and not by vehicle, and he definitely made it to that pond, at which point his scent disappeared, making it seem like someone somehow put him in a vehicle and took him off without getting captured on any video footage? Is that the one logical conclusion, or are there other explanations? Keep in mind that most children who go missing, according to the statistics, do so at the hands of a family member. Occam's razor would point to something bad happening to Sebastian at the hands of his mother, perhaps with help from his stepfather. She's the last person who was with Sebastian, supposedly. Law enforcement always says that the last person seen with the person or the victim is the first suspect. That's why Katie Proudfoot has been on the hot seat from the jump. I think it's logical to believe that nobody wants to go to prison. The guilty party, whoever is responsible for Sebastian going missing, is going to go to any length to avoid getting busted. But of course, everybody wants us to believe that Sebastian ran away, and that is a possibility, although it doesn't seem like the most likely possibility. Chris Proudfoot said in a recent interview on Smiley's Story World, I think is the name of the channel, that security cameras from a neighbor's house would have picked up anyone going in or out of the front door due to lights on the security keypad that is used to lock and unlock the door. Another channel declared this an aha moment because they said, this must mean that Sebastian never left the house. But another channel rationally thought about this and said, somebody could have been standing in front of that keypad when the numbers were punched and a light went on or off. Therefore, it's not necessarily 100% certain that the same camera that picked up, supposedly, Sebastian taking the garbage down to the end of the driveway would have picked up the light on that keypad. Chris Proudfoot said it would have. But he doesn't know that. And those creators who declared, aha, this means Sebastian didn't leave the house, and Chris Proudfoot just told on himself, and Katie Proudfoot. But that's not necessarily true either. It is possible that somebody could have been standing in front of the keypad, blocking the camera from seeing a light turning on or off. It's also possible that the camera wouldn't pick up that angle to the front door. So this is where we're at. Let's hope that law enforcement really does have a lot more information than we web sleuths do. Now, Seth Rogers and his PR guy, Tony Mathis, were on Bullhorn Betty's show tonight. It was a nearly 3-hour show. Seth talked about Sebastian as a child. He shared his favorite memories. He said the same thing that Chris Proudfoot said recently on another YouTube channel, and that is that Sebastian loves to swim, but only in pools. He will not go in ponds or rivers or other natural bodies of water. Thus I doubt that Sebastian would ever even stick his big toe in that retention pond. At least he wouldn't do it willingly. If any part of Sebastian or any of his belongings were in that pond, even for just a moment, that likely was not Sebastian's choice or decision. Betty asked Seth about him taking care of Sebastian when Katie went into the Navy, and Seth explained it like this.
It was Jennifer Coffindaffer, and you were talking about that you took care of your son, that she ended up, after his medical diagnosis, went off to the Navy. How was that? What prompted that decision?
I really don't want to say anything bad about his mom, but if you're not willing to do something along the lines of taking care of the child, then you have to do something else to help with the family. And I was going to school full time, I was working full time, and I was taking care of the child full time. And
Gotcha.
She sleeps like a rock. She slept like a rock when she was with me. And like he'd wake up and scream, and it wouldn't matter if I had just had 30 minutes of sleep or 2 hours of sleep. As soon as he would wake up, it's like, hey, are you gonna go take care of him this time? And no answer. And I get up and I just go back to doing what needs to be done, because it's not his fault he's awake.
Right.
And it got to the point that I had to drop out of school. And it was just like, then I talked to her and I tried to have one of those life developing conversations where, you don't want to be in the career you're in 20 years from now, still be doing it. So if you do 20 years in something else, then you can retire and have a nice little, then you can go take all that education and learning and go do something else with your life too. And here we are 15 years later.
So if we are to believe Seth, Katie was not the type of mother who'd jump out of bed when she heard her baby cry in the night. Either that, or she slept so soundly that she didn't hear the baby cry. Could this be a mother without maternal instincts? Maybe. Or maybe Seth wants to paint Katie in a certain light, and maybe this isn't true. Now, when Betty asked how Sebastian would react to other people, to strangers, this is what Seth said.
If he got a bad impression about you the first time, he didn't want to talk to you.
How about, sorry, I didn't mean to go, did you want to finish that? Sorry.
If he liked you, then he would not put himself out there, but he would not hide. All right, because you had pretty much three different things. One, he would hide. Two, he would be shy. Or three, he apprehensive. Like, I've watched him, and it's like, as he got older, it's like, did you think she was cute or something? Yeah. Is that why you went out and shook her head and told her, what your name was? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's fine, son. Just keep it like a gentleman,
It's sad to hear Seth talking about Sebastian in the past tense. I think it kind of tells us where his head is at right now. The other thing that's interesting is that he said that Sebastian might hide. He might be apprehensive. So I suppose it's still on the table that Sebastian may have taken off, and maybe he went somewhere to hide, and maybe he did get stuck somewhere, and they just haven't found him yet. I watched a crime story today about a woman who was a cleaning lady in a high-rise building in New York City, and she vanished one night after last being seen going into an elevator None of the security cameras showed her ever leaving the building. They brought in canines, and the canines searched all over. They did hit on her scent on the floor where her cart was last seen and where it was found, but she wasn't with it. Well, like a week later, they went up to a floor that was under construction, and immediately detectives smelled that very distinct odor of decomp. And up in an air conditioning area in the ceiling, they found this lady, and she was bound by the mouth and the hands and the ankles. She'd been up there the whole time, even when the canines came in, but the air conditioning unit apparently was blowing the air in a different direction or out a different way, and the dogs did not pick up on the scent. What I'm trying to say is that perhaps the wind, affects the way the scent goes. And also, canines aren't always accurate. They don't always detect the scent when it's there, and they may detect a scent that is a false alarm. Listen to how Seth described the way Sebastian would react to changes in his schedule or life.
At my house, it's routine. I really don't know too much about their house, but he was getting accustomed to it because every other week coming here or during vacation times and stuff. But I didn't have much of a schedule here unless we were doing things. Because if he was going to be here and he didn't have school, it's like, hey, you can't be up all night. I have to work. You definitely need to be going to bed by like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I know you're watching TV, and I know you're playing games on your Switch. And like, if I was at work, I'd just call him from work, see what he's doing, check in on him. And he knew that he needed to make sure his phone stayed charged, and then he needed to answer that phone when it rang, because it could either be me or his mom calling him.
Interesting that Seth says that Sebastian knew to keep his phone charged. He knew to have it with him just in case Seth called or his mother Katie called. Katie and Chris Proudfoot have said that Sebastian wasn't the type of child who would grab his phone necessarily when he left the house. They said that they'd have to remind him to take it, that they were trying to establish this as a routine, but that he didn't really like doing that. So sort of two different perspectives here, I guess. If we think that Katie and Chris are being deceptive, they would have a reason to push the narrative that Sebastian didn't like taking his phone with him, because they've said, and we know, that he did not take his phone with him when he vanished. He then asked how Sebastian felt about new things, and Seth said, like, what? And she said, well, maybe like a new game, like a new tag game or a running game. Take a listen to what Seth said.
Not really here. As for playing tag or anything, it's really not a new game. That's just, it's an old game with a new twist.
Gotcha.
And
Now, now's the
going
question.
to the park and stuff like that, he always loved to run. I mean, he liked to always play tag. Anything that got his blood pumping and him running around. When we were in California, I was teaching him how to play soccer. I drew the line at football. And I was just like, I can't have him have a head contact injury or something like that. And no.
So we keep hearing from all the parents that Sebastian loved to run. We've also heard from a neighbor that Sebastian once hid under a vehicle in their driveway, and yet Katie and Chris keep saying that Sebastian wasn't an eloper, which I guess when you're talking about children on the spectrum would be a child that has a tendency to take off. Say if they see a body of water, they'll go running toward the water. But could Sebastian actually be an eloper? And maybe he just didn't do it all that often. He loved to run. He was once found under a vehicle in the neighbor's driveway. Why did he do that also? Like, why would he hide under a vehicle? Nobody's ever really explained that. To me, that seems like a desperate place to hide. There have to be better places to hide than that. I mean, that's potentially dangerous, and also the neighbors are likely to find you, right? Maybe he wanted to be found. Betty asked about food, and I'm just not going to share that because this seems to be something people keep bringing up. To me, I don't see the connection to food with the story in terms of Sebastian's disappearance. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, but I just didn't want to take time for that because we already talked about cake pops a lot on that other channel, and I'm over the whole cake pop discussion. I'll just quickly say that apparently Sebastian liked a lot of Little Debbie products. So maybe those were the snacks that Katie said she and Sebastian went to purchase on Sunday for him. Betty then asked about changes to the weather, and if these things affected Sebastian in any particular way. Here's what Seth said.
Again, when he was here, if we had thunderstorms and stuff, like when we had the 2 tornadoes that hit Clarksville, the one on Fort Campbell Boulevard and the one on Tiny Town Road, he was by my side the whole time. Like, I went out front, smoked a cigarette, and I was like, well, that doesn't look good. And I was like, well, I'm going to walk back this way. At least I won't see it when it hits the front of the house. You know, Sebastian had already put on his boots and everything because he was ready. Because I'd already told him, listen, we're in a tornado watch, warning, bad thunderstorms. Get everything ready. I had the bathroom already prepared, you know, towels and stuff in the bottom of the tub. And so he could go in there and I could throw the mattress on top of him if necessary. And went to the backyard, saw them from coming down from Tiny Town Road. So it was kind of like, well, they're coming from both sides. I don't know what to do, you know. And we went back to watching movies. Had the doors open so that we had a breeze coming through here. I mean, I grew up.
And he did well, huh?
Well, it's like, I'm not worried, so why would he be worried?
I don't know if Betty asked that because she was concerned that a weather event might have sent Sebastian running out the door, but I don't recall hearing that there was a thunderstorm or a snowstorm or anything like that. It's very cute, though, that Sebastian had his boots on and he was all prepared for these tornadoes. And now it sounds like a happy memory for Seth because obviously the house didn't get torn down and the two of them got to be in the bathroom, perhaps in that bathtub, watching movies together with the breeze blowing through. Next came a question about what would trigger an episode in Sebastian. And I think what she meant was perhaps a meltdown or a tantrum.
Sometimes it would be like literally nothing that you would observe because everything's coming from his perspective. But stress is one of them. I mean, I've seen him, again, hindsight's 2020, but stress, probably feeling like you're not in control of yourself, like you have no control over your life.
We know that the Proudfoots were planning to have Sebastian go and live with his father Seth in the summer. We also heard that, at least from Chris Proudfoot, that Sebastian wasn't happy about that because he was going to be enrolled in an online learning environment at his father's house, and that made him unhappy. So it sounds like there were a lot of things that were causing Sebastian stress. I wonder what Seth was going to say after the words, I've seen him, and then he stopped and he paused and he said, but hindsight's 2020. Is he thinking back to when Sebastian didn't want to return to the Proudfoot home? Seth said that Sebastian didn't really explain that to him, and Seth, didn't push him for an answer.
I have seen him stay up for 2 days, 2.5 days straight from overstimulation.
Betty, I think, wanted to know if all the events that Katie and Sebastian did on Sunday before he went missing, if those could have overstimulated Sebastian and led to him leaving, or led to some altercation inside the home. Seth also mentioned that Sebastian showed zero interest in learning how to drive. It sounds like Seth offered to have him go behind the wheel and he was going to teach him some stuff, and Sebastian had zero interest in it. Maybe he was afraid. It's terrifying when you first learn to drive, at least it was for me, especially on highways. But I do wonder if this hints to Sebastian really not being the type of kid who's going to run out the door, take off by himself. It doesn't sound like he was dying to drive a car or become a grown-up or be out on his own. I have to say that when Seth and Katie talk about parenting Sebastian, what they say always sounds good to me, like good life lessons designed to create an independent adult someday, someone with a mind of his own and who is responsible. But when Chris Proudfoot talks about parenting, what I've heard most of the time is about his strict parenting, his harsh lessons, like taking the snake away when Sebastian wasn't taking care of it. Chris said in an interview yesterday that when Sebastian didn't clean his room, Chris would go in there with a garbage bag. He would grab everything that was on the floor or not in its rightful place, and he would throw it out. I mean, to me, that sounds a little harsh. I can guarantee you my parents never did that to me. But of course, I was a perfect child. I kept my room clean. Yeah, right. Me, when Chris talks about parenting, it's about the enforcement of rules and controlling Sebastian's behavior, not giving him new experiences designed to broaden his horizons, not designed to make his palate more sophisticated. Now, Betty brought up snacks again, and she asked Seth what Sebastian's favorite snacks were. And this is what Seth said, and I think this one is important, and you'll see why.
Well, really kind of depended on his mood on that one. Sometimes it was ice cream. A lot of times it would be like Debbie snacks. Like he liked Nutty Bars. He loved zebra cakes and Swiss roll cakes. But it's like I still have a box of his Fiber One granola bars up there in the cabinet. It's not open. He finished off one of his last ones when he was here. I've got his.
Deep breath, buddy.
I'm so sorry you're going through this.
It's about to stop.
Take your time.
I'll be right back.
That to me is authentic emotion. It's what you'd expect in the parent of a missing child. Seth didn't hesitate. He knew the snacks that his son liked. He was very specific. When the Proudfoots were asked, Chris mentioned candy, chocolate. When Betty asked if Sebastian loved candy, Seth said no.
What? You brought up something that, I didn't even think about on my list. So when you go to the store, what snacks, what kind of snacks did he like? Like, what was his favorite? Like, I don't know. Did he eat candy? What did he like?
No,
Did you hear him say no? That's funny because Katie and Chris said he loved candy. I just want to say that Seth's emotions seem appropriate for the situation. His son has been missing for 3 months. I don't think Seth is involved in Sebastian's disappearance. He may not be a perfect person, but none of us are. I seriously doubt he's involved. Just my gut feeling based on his emotions in interviews. And also, he does sound like he has an alibi. He then brought up the proof of life video, the video from the Texas Roadhouse, and Seth said that all he had a chance to see was that indeed Sebastian was there. He was alive. One thing Seth said was he wishes that he still had the video or that he could have the video so that he could sit and watch it. And he also said that he's a suspect in the case.
And you got an opportunity to see your son walk out of the restaurant. Can you tell me, what was the first thing that you noticed when you saw that video?
He's alive. It was literally just a proof of life video.
What was his demeanor like?
There wasn't enough for me to tell.
How about the clothes that he was wearing? Were those, I think you've already answered this, but just for my clarification.
Chris answered that question.
Huh?
Chris answered that question.
What did Chris say? I
Chris
must have
said that they used his clothes from the night before for the scent dogs.
Okay, gotcha. Did anything appear odd or out of place when you were looking at that video?
Didn't pay that much attention. I was just happy to see that.
Gotcha.
Do I wish I had? Yes. Do I wish I had that video so I could sit there and just look at it? Yeah, but I'm not law enforcement in this case. I'm a suspect.
And you have not been cleared?
No, nobody has.
If you had a list...
I think it's kind of hilarious, but, you know.
And actually, I'm going to kind of go on a little tangent here.
I wish Betty would not have interrupted him there. I would have liked to hear what else he had to say. Very interesting that he says he's a suspect and that nobody's been cleared, because Chris Proudfoot has been on a campaign for many, many weeks saying that all 3 parents have been cleared. Not true, according to Seth. I'm going to stop there because it's 1 a.m. where I am and I'm exhausted. If you want me to keep going with this particular interview, let me know in the comments. There have been so many interviews, and they're all like 3 hours long. This stuff is killing me, trying to find the tidbits, the important bits, but having to listen through the entire thing to get them. Ay. All right, well, good night, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now smash that like button.